So we're going to talk about what are the things that we put in God's place, and what does that look like? The first one that I have here is identity. We see ourselves as being defined by things, being defined by abilities or skills, maybe even social media, achievements, how we look. And this is idolatry because we should identify ourselves first and foremost as a child of God. And who has He made us to be? But often we have abandoned who He's made us to be, or we don't even know. We're like, I have no idea who God wants me to be. We get our identity from something that is temporary and external, something that will change. Opinions of people will change. What people think of us is going to change based on what we wear. Do we really want to get our identity, our worth, our value from something that is so easily changed? We will always feel that we don't measure up if identity is our idol. We will always feel like we have something to prove. We will always feel like a failure because everyone's opinion is different. There's some of us here today, or maybe even online, who are thinking, what is this woman talking about? She's crazy. I don't want to listen to her. If I took that on as part of my identity, then that could change tomorrow. Someone could be like, wow, she does know what she's talking about. But the one who matters, the opinion that matters, is Jesus. Who did He make you to be? What does He think of you? How does He identify you? Someone will always be better. If you look at it from the outside, an outside perspective, however you gauge better, someone will always have more followers, someone will always be better looking, because we have this standard that we measure things by. But God knows us, and He identifies us as His children. So valuable to Him that He was willing to die for us. Each of us. Regardless of how you identify yourself, that's how He identifies you. When we remove our identity from being an idol and put God in its place, we know that even if we fall short, God's in control. Ben always says this, we don't have to please people. I'm going to butcher this. Help me. You have nothing to prove, but you do have someone to please. And that's the Lord. He's the one that forgives us and directs us and loves us no matter what. And we can live in freedom. It's so much more freeing when you can understand that no matter what you do, even if you make mistakes, that He knows you and that He loves you. But if we care more about what others think of us, it has become an idol. We can take identity off the throne of our hearts because it doesn't belong there. Another one example that I have is money or materials. Having money is not bad. Being wealthy is not bad. And in fact, you don't even have to be wealthy to have money as an idol. If it consumes your thoughts, if it's what you think about, if it's what you put your hope and your trust in, if it's what you get your security from, then it has become an idol. Another thing that Ben likes to say is that we shouldn't be so worried about where the money is coming from, because ultimately we understand that God has all authority over that. God is the provider. So if He chooses, if this stream of income dries up, He is all powerful. He can provide our needs. So we don't need to have money as an idol. It's not bad to have. It's not bad to work. It's not bad to pay your bills and do all that stuff, but to understand that ultimately God is in authority over all that we need. God is in authority over money. And we can trust that God is our provider when we remove money and materials from the throne and put God in His place. Even when our financial situation doesn't make sense, He will work things out for our good. And we can stop frantically seeking to accumulate more and trust that He has our backs. We can be generous because we know He has our needs taken care of. Okay, number 3. Are you ready for this one? Sex. It's crazy how something that God designed and created to be something that bonds two people together in marriage has become God to so many people. It has become an idol if it controls your life, and if it has more say than the God who created you. And this could look like a lot of things. This could look like thoughts that are consumed with sex. How am I going to get it? When am I going to get it? How is it going to happen? It could look like an addiction where you've been enslaved by it. It's something you can't even control anymore. Maybe you've done it outside of God's design. And again, this is not judging. Like, all of us have fallen short. This is not to come across as harsh, because God has so much grace and he is so forgiving. But I do believe that he sees the harm that it does. And this is a huge topic in our culture. If you talk to anybody about this topic, you will get a million different opinions about it. In fact, sometimes, especially if you don't agree with someone, you will see the idolism, the idolatry of this situation, because you come up to someone and there's immediate offense. There's this defensiveness of, I'm going to defend what I believe is true, and this is my way of living, and I am going down this path. And we are in no way supposed to do that. We're not supposed to be like, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. But when you're in the church and when you follow Jesus, we need to tell the truth. We can't lie about this. We can't just coddle people. If you do that, you don't love them. Anything that has as much outrage and defensiveness around it has to be an idol. And we will defend our idols with ferocity. Sex is not bad. It's something that, as it functions under God's design, was meant to be good. But if it consumes us and it's not how God designed it to be, it will eventually hurt us. It will not benefit us. And it will only bring harm. It will make us feel guilt and shame. But when we take sex off the throne and we put God there and we say, God, I submit this to you. Whatever your design is for this in my life, that's what I want to do. Then we put God in his rightful place, and it won't control or enslave us. The last one I have for an example is comfort. Comfort is not bad. It's not bad to have times where you're just like, I'm just going to be comfortable. But it should not be the ultimate thing in your life. And the reason why comfort is an idol is because we can go to great lengths to protect our comfort. And if God asks you to follow him, you will have to be uncomfortable to do that. There is going to be times in your life where you'll have to sacrifice comfort in order to be obedient. God will say, okay, perfect example from my life. He'll say, you're going to be a pastor and you're going to preach. But God, I hate public speaking. It makes me uncomfortable. Well, you're going to do it anyway because this is what I've asked you to do. Comfort cannot be an idol, because where Jesus leads will be uncomfortable. And we'll see if it is an idol in your life, you'll see that if God calls you out of your comfort zone, you're like, I can't. God is too much. You're asking too much of me. But when we remove comfort from the throne and we put God there, we'll be willing to go where he asks us to go, even if it's uncomfortable. And we will reap eternal reward for our obedience. We will get to see people's eternities changed because of God's work in us. These are just a few examples. There's again, I could go on and I'm not going to. There are so many more that I could list. But I just want us to go home today knowing that idols can be false gods, like the Israelites had. They had this calf that wasn't the true God. And they were giving this calf the praise, the honor, the time, the appreciation that God deserved. Idols can be things that were given to us by God, that were meant to be not in his place, but meant to be in our lives. Like family, like spouses, like mentors, like people who are there to help us. Those are all good things, but they were never meant to be worshiped. And they can be sin issues. They can be things that we refuse to let go of because we want them so much, but we want them so much that we don't want to release them. Having everything that God's given you in your hands like this is how you stop having idolatry in your life. But if you're gripping it and holding on to it and you refuse to let go, or you refuse to see it how he sees it, then it has become an idol. There are so many examples, but we need to understand that some of the things that have been given to us that we idolize, they are from God, but we weren't supposed to put them in that place. Some people worship nature. Maybe they idolize their spouse or their kids or people in their life. But we need to remove them from the throne and submit them to Christ. We can be thankful for what he's given us, but still worship and give the rightful worship to the one who gave them to us. But if they're first in your life, they will ultimately hurt you. What you idolize will disappoint you. It will not bring you lasting purpose or fulfillment. It will not save you or give you lasting security. I'm going to call the worship team up. Here at New Life, we believe that what is in Scripture, what is designed by God for your life is what's best. None of us are perfect, and I'm not standing here saying, I've never done this. I've never put something in God's place in my life, so you guys shouldn't either. That is not what I'm saying. We've all done this. We've all fallen short. None of us are perfect in our worship of him or in any other area. And it's not an easy journey. It's not like all of a sudden you can just be like, okay, I'm done with it. I'm not even going to have any issues in this area. I'm just going to be perfect now. That's not how this works. But I am here to share with you God's truth and his design, because I fully believe that that's the best way to live. It's not because I'm thinking I'm better than anybody or any of us here thinks that. It's because we've been down the road where we've fallen in the pit and we've been like, why did this happen? How did I get here? Why am I dealing with all these issues? And then someone lovingly came alongside us and said, it's because you didn't live after God. It's because you had something else in his place. In God's design, he is first in our life. And he's the only one worthy of our worship. He not only deserves our worship, but he designed us to worship him. And what that says to me is that if anything else is in his place, it ultimately isn't going to satisfy. If we have a person in God's place and that person fails you, because we're all imperfect and we all fail, then our whole world is shaken. I've been there. You're like, I'm looking up to this person and they make a mistake. If all your hope is in that person, if you're giving the wrongful worship to that person, then your faith is shaken. If you have money or position in God's place and your finances go sideways, then you're like, I can't even cope. I can't handle life. If you have sex in God's place and you're stuck in addiction, you are enslaved. If you have your kids in God's place, they're going to disappoint you. They're not going to be able to be everything and be perfect. You will be crushed because you're expecting them to do what God is supposed to do and only he can do. We cannot anchor ourselves on the temporary. We cannot anchor ourselves on things that are going to fade. We can only put our hope and trust in the eternal. God knows that we're going to thrive when we worship him. And when we put him in his proper place, that we will do the best, that we will thrive. Idols will change. None of them are permanent. None of them are just long-lasting, never going to make mistakes. They will fail. But the one true God, he is eternal and he will never fail us. He wants to set us free. He wants our identity to be in him. He wants to provide to us lasting joy, fulfillment, and peace. He wants us to see him as our provider, our protector. He wants us to give him our praise. And he loves us enough to tell us the truth. To not let us believe destructive lies that the enemy would have us believe because he doesn't want us to be offended. He says there's a pit over there. Don't go after that idol. I want to give you good things. I want you to have a life that is filled with the things that I've given you under my design. Don't try to do it your way. He wants to be in his rightful place in our lives. He wants our worship. In John 4:23, it says, "But an hour is coming and is now here, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth." Yes, the Father wants such people to worship him. He deserves our praise. He's looking for true worshipers who will worship him in spirit and in truth. Revelation 4:11 says, "Our God, our Lord and God, you are worthy to receive glory and honor and power because you have created all things, and by your will they exist and were created." I believe that idolatry is heartbreaking to God for multiple reasons. The first is that he is our creator. He made us. He loves us. He provides for us. He cares for us. And he knew us and created us in our mother's womb. He is worthy. And the second is that God sees how idolatry hurts us. He sees the pit. He sees where we're going to end up. He sees how it will disappoint us, how it will enslave us, how it will take us places we don't want to go and lead us to destruction. And he wants what's best for us. He wants our good. It says actually in Luke 19:40 that God is so worthy of praise. This was happening when he was coming in and the crowds were praising him and worshiping him. And then they were asking him, like, why are they doing this? And he says, I tell you, if they were to keep silent, the stones would cry out. Think about that. God is so worthy of praise that he doesn't even need us. If we didn't do it, something else would. He is worthy. And I don't know about you all, but I want to be one of the true worshipers. I want to remove my offense because God is telling me, I don't want to be like, I'm offended that you're telling me the truth right now, God. I want to be like, this is the way that you designed it. And I want to live for you, regardless of how this makes me feel right now. I want to be a true worshiper. He created us and everything around us, and he is worthy of our praise. He is forgiving. He is loving. And in no way was this message supposed to come across as a hard slap across the face. This was a chance to turn to him and to ask him to help us. He wants to uncover those idols. He wants to deal with those things. He wants us to bring those things to him and ask him to forgive us. And he wants to restore relationship with us. He wants us to surrender these things to him and put him in his rightful place in our lives. And he's waiting to forgive us.